Hello everyone. In this video, we'll discuss about MySQL using Python. In the earlier video, we have seen that how to execute a syntax using a command prompt. So in this video, we'll see how we can use our Python or in the Jupyter notebook, how we can execute all those commands, how to write a syntax in a Jupyter notebook. All right. So let's begin our session. First and foremost thing, if you want to execute your SQL inside the Jupyter notebook, right, using a Python, so first and foremost, you need to install some of the software, right? So install MySQL software. First of all, I'm sure definitely you would have installed if you have already practiced in a command prompt, right? And the second thing is pip install MySQL, right? This explanatory mark, pip install MySQL. All right, so that you need to run this particular install MySQL. So once you are done with that, without that you will not be able to do anything. After that, what you can do, you have to import this MySQL dot connector, right? What is this connector? Basically this will help us to connect to the MySQL, right? So somehow we have to connect, right? So basically we are going to import this connector. So that is MySQL dot connector. So you can use this import and import this connector. Fine. Once you are imported, so you need to start connecting to the database, right? So connecting to the database. So first and foremost, right now I don't have any database, right? So we need to create the database, we need to create the tables, we need to insert the records, so many things. First of all, I need to instantiate to MySQL using my credentials. So I have to connect it. How do I connect? So MySQL dot connector, the same guy, then I will say dot connect, right? Dot connect. I am connecting it to the SQL part. So when I say dot connect, I have to give my credentials because I have to tell that who I am, whether I am a valid user or not. So for that, I have to give the host name and the user ID and the password. By default, root will be your user ID. If you have changed it, you have to use that user ID, right? And the password, what you have set, you have to give that password. So I have to give all these credentials after dot connect. Then everything I'm going to instantiate into MyDB. You can give any name. MyDB is the best name. So I'm going to instantiate into MyDB. Then I will just print it just to see that whether it is successful or not, right? Let me execute. Yes, it is connected, right? You can see MySQL connector, connection CEXT. So don't worry about the object and all. If at all you are able to see this kind of output or this message, it means that it is connected, right? Now you can go ahead and start use it. Fine. So now I want to create a database. Before that, I would like to see how many database exist. Just wanted to see the database names. And if at all the same name, if I create, right, it is going to be a problem. It will give me an error. So that this way I will be able to see the names of database, and based on that I can come up with my name, right? So in order to check the databases in MySQL, what I'm going to do, right? So let's understand before that what is this cursor, right? So what I'm trying to do here, so this MyDB, this guy will take our all credentials. This guy is having our credentials. the authentication, and I will instantiate this cursor, right? I will instantiate this cursor. I will talk more about the cursor in a while. So authentication, and I will say dot cursor. So everything I'm going to instantiate into one of the object called my cursor. You can give any name, right? So this my cursor, next line, dot execute. Always you have to execute, right? My cursor dot execute. So here the commands, what we are going to add here. What are those commands? Depending upon what kind of operation we wanted to perform. So here I wanted to check the databases. So for that I will write show databases, similar to the one what we have seen in the command prompt. All right, show databases, and all the databases will be inside the my cursor, right? So in this my cursor, so I'm going to use a for loop to print one by one, right? To print one by one. So let's execute this. You can see these are the databases exist, right? So I'm just using a for loop to fetch one by one, and print it, right? So these are the databases exist. Okay, so database 1, database 2, database 3, database 4. So remaining will come by default. So now I wanted to create a new database called database 5. So this is what I wanted to create now. Let's see how to create a database. So what I'm going to do, again, I'm going to instantiate this cursor, mydb.cursor, into my cursor. So if you ask me, will I be able to, do I need to use every time this cursor part? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove this. Okay, let's not use that one since I already instantiate here. So now what I will do, I will say my cursor dot execute. This is going to be always there, right? Execute command. So here I'm going to say create, right? Create database, and your database name. Database name. I'm going to execute, right? I'm going to execute, and my database is created. Right? Database 5 is already created. If you want to check, what we can do is simply go back here, and re-execute once again. Now you can see database 5 exists. All right. So it means that database 5 is successfully created. Now what I'm going to do, I have to start creating table now, right? Only database exists. We have to create the tables now. So what I'm going to do, I am going to create a table, and here you need to understand that, as I mentioned in the earlier videos, we may have multiple databases, right? This is database 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? There are maybe hundreds of databases. Where do you want to create the table? I want to create a table inside database 5, right? Database 5. So how do I mention that? So that's where you have to mention this database, where it will connect to this particular database. So again, I'm saying MySQL.connector dot connect as it is, my credentials. This time I will say database equal to database 5. This is where I want to create my table, right? So this is the extra thing that you have to mention, and you can change this depending upon your requirement. depending upon in which database you want to create a table. I am using database file. So everything is inside my DB. I'm instantiating into it. Now I am reinstantiating this cursor. This time my DB has changed. It is carrying now extra parameter, right? Database. So I have to reinitiate this cursor, mydb dot cursor. So this cursor is basically, it will point out. It is for a pointing. Nothing else. It is for a pointing. So this is where I have to do something. This is where I want to insert. This is where I want to create. So it's a kind of a pointer. That's how you can interpret this. Taking all this data, mydb, and I'm instantiating the cursor into one of the object. Going forward, I'm going to refer only this guy. So my cursor dot execute. Do not forget this. If you forget this, you are not going to do anything. Always you have to say execute. Right? My cursor dot execute. Here I am going to write my SQL for creating a table. The syntax follows: create table, and the table name what I'm going to give is a school. This is basically table name. Different table name I want to create. Fine. So now I'm creating a table name. Assume this is inside. I'm taking this guy. So fine. And what are all the column names? I will say gender. Okay. Gender is one column. Fine. Anything else? Student ID. Yes. Student ID is one more column. Anything else? Marks is one more column. So when I'm creating these columns, right? So I'm saying that gender should take maximum 6 characters only, not more than that. Because I know male, female, the maximum is female characters 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm assigning 6. And how much length student ID should have? Student ID should have always integers only. And maximum length is 10. If somebody try to enter more than 10, it should not allow. Right? I'm restricting. And marks, so obviously maximum marks one can get is 100 only. Right? So I'm saying, and always it should be integer only. So I'm setting it to integer, and maximum length is allowed is only 3. 1, 2, 3. So this is what these are basically field constraints or column constraints. Constraint, constraint, constraint. So that is how I'm going to define these columns. Fine. So let's go ahead and execute this syntax and create a table with column name gender, student ID, and marks. Right? Table is created. Now I want to see the tables, whether it is created or not. Almost same syntax. So now onwards, I'm not going to repeat the same thing here because we already know it. So I'm going to point to database 5 only. And as usual, instantiating into my cursor, and I will say dot execute. Syntax is only what we are going to discuss. If there is any change, I will explain that. Show tables. I want to see the tables. Now I'm going to fetch one by one. Now you can see a school table is created. Only table is created, nothing else. Now I'm going to insert the data. How to insert the data? Right? So let's understand single record insertion. Everything remains same. Make sure that you have connected to your database where your table exists. Instantiating cursor. So I am writing the SQL and storing in one of the object, right? So it's a good practice. You write your SQL in one of the object, assign it to one of the object, and you can just call that. Let's see that, how we can call it. And the SQL goes as follows. Insert, okay, I'm going to insert. Where? Okay, insert into, there is a table called school. Insert into school, fine. I'm going to insert into school. Suppose this is a school table. I'm going to insert. So where and all I should insert? I will say, okay, insert into gender, fine. Insert into student ID, fine. And insert into marks also. I'm selecting these columns. So in these columns, I wanted to insert the data. Okay, I have selected this. Now I need a data, right? Right? Gender is male or female. What is student ID? What is his marks or her marks? So now I'm going to say these are the column names. Now I'm giving these values. VALUES. I'm assigning these values. Values are male. It has to be corresponding to your column. How you are defining, how you are selecting your columns. In the similar order, you have to pass the values. You cannot have marks here. You cannot have marks here, 45 and here male. It is not going to work. So gender means first one is gender. Second column is student ID. This is the student ID. Third one is marks and this is the marks. All right. So everything is inside this SQL. Now I say my cursor dot execute as usual. And in this, I'm going to call this SQL. I can also write this insert into in this parenthesis. I don't want to do that. I wanted to store in one particular object and I will call it. However you feel comfortable, you can do, but this is the best practice. All right. Fine. I'm going to call this guy and it will execute this. After that, I'm saying mydb.commit. What is this commit? Once I insert the data, right, it is not going to save permanently. So in order to save it, I have to commit. I have to commit, COMMIT. So this will make sure your data is being saved permanently. So I will say my DB, this guy, in this database with this for these credentials. So the data should be committed. So data will be saved. And finally, this is basically to check how many records inserted. Row count is a method and it will count how many records are being inserted. It will count itself. We don't need to worry. So I will say my cursor dot row count. If you insert 100, it will keep a count of that one. All right, let's execute. Now it is saying one record inserted. One record. This one is coming from here and record inserted. Fine, that is a single record. How to insert single record. If I want to insert multiple records, how to do that? Now what I'm going to do, this is the same one. This is also as usual. And here I'm saying insert into the table name. Into this, it will change according to your table name. This is going to be a constant. This syntax, this order will never change, right? You have to always follow the order. Insert into and the table name. And also I'm selecting, okay, these are the columns. In these columns, I want to insert the values. Selected columns and values, right? I have to give the values, right? So I will say multiple values here now, right? Multiple values. Just like the first one, only thing is this time I have multiple records. Male, student ID marks, gender student ID marks, gender student ID marks, gender student ID marks. You can give as many as you want, right? So don't think that thousands together data I will be able to insert this way. We have seen in the earlier video how to insert a huge data or from file, how to insert into database, right? The data inside the file can be inserted using some different technique that we have discussed, right? If you have not seen that video, I suggest you to go back and see the earlier videos. So finally, I am executing it and I am saving it, right? So only SQL is what going to be changed. Other than that, all processes are going to be same here. Whenever you insert, whenever you want to save some change, whenever you want to manipulate the data. Let's execute. So 6 records inserted. So I have 6 records here. All right. That is multiple record insertion. Another way is you can say insert into school, select your columns. Here I say values, percentages, percentages, percentages. So if you have 4 columns, one more percentages will come, right? Values. So what I'm trying to do, I have all this data, same data, like gender, ID, and marks, right? And I will save it in this val. Save it in this val. So in this case, I am going to say execute many. If you have this kind of a situation, if you are using this type of this way to insert the records, you have to say execute many. Execute many. One is a SQL, another one is value. So this will make sure that this syntax will make sure that it will take a value from this particular variable. Right? You don't need to worry how it will take. It will understand these symbols and it will understand where is the target variable from where it's supposed to pick the data. So it will do by itself. Finally, I am committing. I'm storing the data. Let's execute that. And 4 records inserted. 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right. Fine. This is all about inserting records or rows or a data. Anything, however you want to interpret, you can interpret. So now I want to see whether the records or the data has been or those records were inserted or not into the table. So now I'm going to do data selection. How to fetch the data, right? So now I'm going to select. You don't need to import once again. If you have done only one time, that's fine. If you come out of this Jupyter notebook and starting from here, then you have to import, all right? Otherwise, only one time is enough. I'm connecting to this database with my credentials and selecting the database as well. And my query is going to be as simple as that. Select star everything, select everything from this table. This is the order you have to follow. Select star, star means everything. If you want to select only one column, you have to mention only one column. Suppose a gender, you can do that, right? Let's see each and every data. So for that, I'm saying select star everything from my table name. What is the table name? Table name is school, right? So fine, that is into my cursor. So what I'm going to do, how cursor will work? Okay, one more time. So suppose these are all the records. Record 1, 2, 3, 4. Assume that only 4 records. These are the column names. 1, 2, 3, 4, or however it is. Whenever I say, whenever we start extracting the data, right? Cursor will be pointed over here for the very first record. It doesn't do anything, right? It will just place it over here. So whenever I execute, right, it will fetch this data. Then cursor will move to the second, third, fourth, one by one. It is going to, point to each and every record, one by one, right? Fine. So selecting the records from table called school. So here I'm saying fetch all. Fetch all means all the records. Fetch all the records. You can also fetch only one record, saying ptch1, fetch one. Here I want to see all of them. I will give fetch all. The result of this statement will be stored in this guy. I'm storing everything in one of the object. And I'm fetching one by one, selecting one by one using a for loop. Directly you can give this. Here I'm going to store it. And using a for loop, I'm trying to extract. Let's execute. So these are all the records that we have inserted. All right. Fine. That's how I can fetch the records, all the records. Now I want to select records. I want to fetch records based on some condition, right? So one of the condition I can apply using a where clause. WHERE, where clause. Let's see how we can use it. Select distinct. So what is distinct? Distinct is only one. If there are multiple similar type of records, right? I wanted to select only one. Suppose say Shankar, and there is one more Shankar, right? If my condition is, if the name is equal to Shankar, then fetch all the records, fetch all the data in each and every column. So I have two Shankars. So what I'm going to do, if I mention a distinct, only one Shankar data will be retrieved, unique data. So I don't want a duplicate one. So for that reason, I'm going to say distinct, right? Select distinct all the column data from where? From table school, where here I'm going to add a condition. Okay, I will select all the columns data from this table. Now I'm applying a condition. Okay, hold on, don't select everything. I will set some condition. Whichever condition is going to match, the data is going to match, only fetch those data. So where I'm saying student ID equal to this ID. Wherever student IDs matches with this ID, only fetch those records, right? Here you can say gender equal to male. Here you can say marks equal to any number of marks, greater than this marks, less than marks. Accordingly, it will filter, right? So here I'm selecting, I wanted to see this guy details. Maybe this guy has secured 99%. I don't know his name. I don't know whether he's he or a she. So I want to see, but only I know his person ID. So what I'm going to do, I will filter based on this condition, based on his ID. All right. So let's execute this. Otherwise, all the statements are same. Now you can see that, okay, that person is gender is female, and you can see only this record is fetched, and that person marks is 36. Maybe this person got a less marks. I want to see that person, and maybe I can conduct some extra class. Okay, so different reasons, different requirements. That is basically how I can fetch using a where condition. right? Where clause. Now let's see order by. What is order by? So I want to print, I want to see the data in some order. So how do I write the SQL? I say select everything from table name. Now I will say order by. Order by. What is the order? Order, I will say marks. So descending. What is this descending? It will keep it in order. By default, if suppose say there is no descending here, only marks is there. So the marks will be, the data will be showed like 35, 36, 38, 45. So this is in ascending order, starting from lowest to highest, right? By default. If I say descending, so what is going to happen? This is going to be like 45, 38, 36, 35. Maybe you wanted to see the highest scorer. When I say descending, highest number will come over here, right? Order by, after that you have to have one column, right? Order by column. Most of the time we use with, so order by works with some numbers. I wanted to put it in order. Marks or student ID you can give. On which order you want to, on which column you want to set the order, right? So let's execute. So here you can see data starting from highest, 85, 77. So in decreasing order, highest to lowest. So what we'll do, I will not write anything here. I will not write anything. Now I will execute. So by default, it is ascending, lowest to highest. 35, 36, you can see, right? So you can change it to some different. Instead of marks, you can say student ID. Student IDs will be in an increasing order. So now it doesn't care in which order these marks are. So I want student ID should be in the order, right? So if you ask me, can we do it with a gender, right? So it is starting from female, F alphabetically. Usually we don't use it for a string. Most of the time we use it for some numbers. Alphabetically, yeah, rarely, depends on requirement, right? So however you want to use, you can use it, right? Fine. That is order by. What is the group by, right? So group by statement is often used with aggregate functions. I wanted to group. Group is gender, right? Male is one group, female is one more group, right? So I have only groups. Column is, I can make a group based on gender only, right? I cannot make a group on numbers, right? So that's how you can think. So count, what are the aggregate functions? When I say aggregate functions, count is one aggregate function. Likewise, max, min, sum, average. Count is total number. Maximum is, what is the maximum data? In this maximum is 85. Count is total count. Just add it, total. Minimum is minimum number, right? So total means total count, like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, right? Total count. 10 is the count. So max and min, and the sum is basically sum of these data. Sum of these data, 85 plus 77 plus 66 plus, that is the sum. Average is all the sum, basically the sum of all these marks divided by number of records. You can simply say that sum divided by count. This is how you can think. That is basically what average. Right? So group by can be used. Most often we use it with this aggregate function. These are all aggregate functions. All right. Let's see one of the syntax and see how things will work. Now what I'm going to do, my SQL is select, select. So I will say count of student ID, count of student ID. And also I want to select gender. Okay. From where? From table called school. So I will say, okay, once you select it, so you group it by gender wise. Gender wise. All right. So let's execute this. Now what it is saying, it grouped by gender. Male is one group, female is one group. How many students? Male 6 students, this count. Female 5 students. All right. So if we go back and check how many male and female, right? We have one male, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And remaining 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 female, 6 male. So that is what we are seeing here. So how did I get that? Using this count. All right. So you want to see how many females, how many males. So that's how I can group it. All right. So maybe if you have a section A, section B, you can group by section A, section B. In each section, how many count of students. So you can do anything. So you can use any of this aggregate functions, depending upon the need. All right. That is basically about a group by. All right. Now let's understand having clause. Having. What is having? So when we should use? Since where clause, so spelling mistake, a where clause cannot be used with the aggregate functions. So having clause is added. Having clause is added to SQL. So aggregate functions, we know, we discussed where also. So what is having? So having whenever I use a having, I can use aggregate functions. Right? So when we want to use a where, we cannot use aggregate functions. Now let's understand how to use this having. I will say select count. Select count of what? Gender. How many males, how many females, right? Okay. And average marks also. You see what is happening? I have few males and few female students. And what is the average marks of a male and average marks of a female, not individual. So I will separate all male candidates marks and all female candidate marks. Then I will take an average of this one. I will take an average of this one. So that data I want. I wanted to see on and average male are scoring more or female are scoring more. Right? So I wanted to see that data. And I will also want to see whether which category they belongs to. Right? Let's see that once we execute. Let me repeat. Select gender count, average marks, and gender. From where? From school, table name. I am saying group by gender. Whenever you print a result, you group it by gender. Right? Group it by gender, male or a female, and female. Now I am using a having clause. Having, okay, so when do you want to display. What is the condition? Now I am setting a condition. You do one thing, you count the gender. Count the gender. Wherever the gender data is greater than 4. So male we have how many? 6. Female how many? 5. So obviously both are greater than 4. So in that case only I want to select. Right? Let's execute. So we can see here. So 6 is basically how many? Male strength is 6, female strength is 5. So how this 6 is coming? Coming from this. How this male, female coming from here. How this average marks are coming? Coming from here. These are the average marks. You can go ahead and find the average of male and a female. You will get this data. You see how simple we can, a simple query will fetch some meaningful data, right? It is counting based on the gender. It is also finding the average corresponding to each gender, and also I'm printing they belongs to male or female, right? So male average score is 49.5, female average score is 51.2. So this is how we can fetch the data using having clause. All right. So yes, that's all in this video. Thank you for watching. Keep learning. Thank you.